In Qusra, in the occupied West Bank, Palestinian families have spent August imprisoned inside their own homes. Settlers pitched tents in their yards. They cut off their water and electricity. Food began to run short. Stones struck the houses. Armed men gathered outside, and inside, parents tried to calm frightened children, never knowing whether the next sound at the door would be another stone, a gunshot, or someone forcing their way in. In one house, Qusra was trapped with his teenage son. Thousands of miles away in Ohio, his brother Lu'ay watched through the security cameras as settlers surrounded the house until Israeli soldiers arrived, not to help, but to remove the cameras capturing the terrifying scene. Nearby, Ruqayya Hassan endured the siege with her children. One of them is 4 years old. Her name is Kinda. Elsewhere in Qusra, Mar'ouda has effectively turned his home into a cage just to keep his family safe. Metal fencing surrounds it. Bars cover the windows. Nearby, someone spray-painted 2 words in Hebrew: death to Arabs. 5 months earlier, Ouda says a settler shot dead his nephew and wounded his brother in front of him. He complained to the Israeli police. The attacks continued. Last week, settlers came to his house again. This is Qusra in August 2026. But Qusra is not an aberration. It is a window onto what is being unleashed across the occupied West Bank. Homes attacked, cars torched, farmers beaten, people shot, sheep stolen, water seized. Olive trees uprooted and burned, families driven from communities where they have lived for generations. And the pattern repeats. A settler outpost appears. Suddenly, land Palestinians have grazed for decades is inaccessible. Roads are blocked. Shepherds are harassed. Homes are raided. Violence becomes routine. And the army that occupies the territory doesn't protect the Palestinians living there. No, in countless documented cases, soldiers accompany and assist their attackers. Human Rights Watch warned in July that escalating settler violence threatened mass atrocities. Amnesty International has described the forcible displacement of Palestinian communities in the West Bank as ethnic cleansing, and Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem puts it more simply: settler violence equals state violence. Consider what happened during the last olive harvest. In just 2 months, the UN documented 178 settler attacks connected to the harvest across 88 Palestinian communities. More than 6,000 trees and saplings were destroyed, most of them olive trees some centuries old. In Ain Yabrud, Palestinian families were given just 3 days by the Israeli military to reach olive groves on their own land. 3 days to harvest their own olives. On the first day, settlers attacked them. The families were forced from the groves. They were too afraid to return. The harvest was abandoned. Think about the cruelty contained in that. A farmer can see his trees. He has tended them through the year. He has watched them flower, watched the fruit ripen. Those trees are his livelihood. They are his family's inheritance. The land is his. The trees are his. The olives are ripe, and he can't reach them. Destroy the tree, and you destroy his livelihood. Prevent him from harvesting it, and you sever his relationship with the land. Make that danger permanent, and farming becomes impossible. And when farming becomes impossible, remaining becomes impossible. And it doesn't stop at pillaging Palestinian land. No, they also attack the water. In Fasail, in the Jordan Valley, farmer Saad Nimr watched settlers take control of a freshwater spring Palestinian farmers had long depended upon. The water was diverted. Part of it now fills a pool at a settler's tourist site. Think about that image. A Palestinian farmer watches his fields thirst, while water from the spring that sustained his village through generations now fills a recreational pool. Land, water, roads, grazing grounds, crops, these are the foundations of human existence. And those carrying out this violence don't operate in a political vacuum. Israel's National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, has dramatically expended civilian armament. His ministry announced the purchase of 10,000 assault rifles for civilian security teams, including teams in West Bank settlements. Gun licensing requirements were loosened. Settlement emergency squads are armed and trained with military weapons. Settler-only reserve units now operate within the Israeli military structure. So on the ground, the line between soldier and armed settler becomes frighteningly blurred. For the Palestinian facing the gun, the distinction is almost meaningless. Meanwhile, Israel's finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, himself a settler, has publicly advocated Israeli sovereignty over 82% of the West Bank. The Israeli government has approved 104 new settlement outposts. The machinery of annexation is advancing. And this brings us to the question the West Bank forces us to confront. For nearly 3 years, Israel and its its Western allies have framed extraordinary violence against Palestinians through the prism of October 7th. Hamas, hostages, security, self-defense. Again and again, Gaza's genocide has been explained to the world as a response to Hamas. But look away from Gaza for a moment. Look east. Look at the occupied West Bank. Hamas doesn't govern there. The Palestinian Authority does. It has maintained security coordination with Israel for decades, and yet Palestinian land is still taken. Palestinian homes are still attacked. Palestinian farmers are still driven from their fields. Their olive trees are still burned. Water is still seized. Shepherding communities are still driven away. Palestinians are still shot. Children are still trapped inside their homes while armed men gather outside, and their land is still being steadily carved up by settlements and outposts. So the West Bank poses a devastating question to anyone who insists that what is being done to Palestinians can simply be explained as a war against Hamas. So tell me, what Hamas fighter is hiding inside an olive tree? What security threat is posed by a shepherd and his flock? What act of terrorism is committed by a farmer trying to harvest his own olives? And what did 4-year-old Kinda Hassan do to warrant being trapped inside her home while armed men gathered outside? The justifications change with the times. Once it was the PLO, today it is Hamas. But strip away the changing pretexts and the underlying reality becomes hard to conceal: the dispossession and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from their land. It has unfolded for decades, and it is accelerating, emboldened by impunity, international inaction, and the political and military backing of Israel's Western allies. One phrase has always dominated Western discussion of Palestine: Israel's right to exist, Israel's right to security, Israel's right to defend itself. These rights are invoked so routinely that they become axiomatic in Western political language. But what of the Palestinians? Do Palestinians have a right to exist? Not merely to survive, not merely to be permitted to remain alive at best, but to exist as a people on their own land with the ordinary rights that make human life possible. Do Palestinians have a right to security, a right to drink from their own springs, to harvest their own trees, to walk their own roads, to tend their own fields, to raise their own children without teaching them to fear footsteps approaching the house? Do Palestinians have a right to defend their homes, their families, their farms and their lives? The West asks Palestinians to disarm, but who will disarm the armed settlers storming their villages? It asks Palestinians to recognize Israel. Who will recognize the Palestinian farmer's right to remain on his own land? It demands that Palestinians prove endlessly that they accept another people's right to exist. Who will affirm Palestinians' right to exist?